What if I told you that the moment you feel an overwhelming need to defend yourself, you've already lost? It's strange, isn't it? We grow up believing that strength means speaking up, having the perfect comeback, and proving we're right at any cost. The louder we are, the stronger we appear, or so we think. But history tells a different story. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who stay quiet, watching, waiting. And when they finally speak, their words hit like a stone thrown into still water, rippling far beyond the moment. Today, in a world obsessed with noise, we're going to uncover why silence, the very thing most people fear, might be the most powerful weapon you can carry. Look around you. The world has never been this loud. It's not just the traffic, the sirens, or the hum of cities. It's the digital noise. Millions of voices speaking at once, competing for a fraction of your attention. Every minute, countless opinions are fired into the void like bullets in the dark. Some land, most don't, but the barrage never stops. Open your phone and you'll see it. Endless debates, strangers tearing each other apart in the comments, political shouting matches, trending controversies that disappear as quickly as they erupt. It's a race to speak first, to speak louder, to drown out everyone else before they drown you out. And in this chaos, people confuse volume for influence, mistaking the constant sound of their own voice for power. Social media has turned human interaction into a battlefield. The rules are simple. Don't pause, don't think, just react. If you're quiet for too long, someone else will fill the space. And in this strange, hyper-connected world, silence is almost seen as guilt. People have learned to fear it, to avoid it at any cost. Think about the last heated conversation you witnessed online or in real life. Who looked more in control? The person firing words like a machine gun, desperate to win, or the one who barely spoke, watching with a calm, almost unreadable expression? You already know the answer. Because silence, when used with intention, is not absence, it's presence. It's a refusal to participate in the ego-driven contest for attention. And that refusal doesn't just make you different, it makes you dangerous. Here's the paradox. In a world addicted to noise, the quiet ones control the tempo. They decide when the game begins and when it ends. And when they finally speak, the room goes still, because everyone has been waiting. But why does holding your tongue unsettle people so much? Why does saying nothing often have more impact than saying everything? The answer lies deeper than most realize. And it's here that silence begins to reveal its true power. Most people have been taught the same lesson since childhood. If you're strong, you speak up. If you're right, you prove it. If you want respect, you demand it. And yet, the more you study human behavior, the more you realize that the people who live by those rules are almost always the ones with the least control. Think about it. When someone rushes to defend themselves, to explain every detail, to fight for every inch of approval, what are they really showing? Not strength, not confidence, but insecurity. They're revealing that your opinion has power over them, that they need you to see them in a certain way to feel whole. True strength is not the desperate urge to be understood. It's the calm certainty that you don't need to be. When you react instantly to criticism, you're playing on someone else's terms. You've allowed them to set the rhythm, and now you're dancing to their beat. But when you hold your tongue, when you refuse to be pulled into the emotional current, something changes. The power dynamic flips. Your silence forces the other person to keep talking, to fill the space, to reveal more than they planned. It creates discomfort, a mental pressure they can't explain but can't ignore. And in that discomfort, they start making mistakes. They reveal their insecurities, their assumptions, their blind spots, all while you remain still. It's no accident that the greatest strategists in history, in war, politics, business, all understood this. They didn't waste energy proving themselves in every skirmish. They picked their battles carefully, and often they won before the fight even began. Because here's the truth: the need to constantly speak is a sign of weakness. The ability to choose your moment, to say nothing when the world demands you speak, that is real strength. But silence is more than a defensive tool. Used correctly, it becomes an offensive weapon. And to understand why, we have to look at it through the eyes of one of history's most provocative thinkers, a man who saw the human need to talk as a symptom of something much deeper. Friedrich Nietzsche was not a man who wasted words. Every sentence he wrote was sharpened like a blade, precise, deliberate, and aimed straight at the heart of human illusions. And one of those illusions, he believed, was our obsession with being heard. To Nietzsche, the constant need to explain yourself, to be understood, to have your voice validated, was not a sign of intelligence. It was a sign of dependence. It meant you were still chained to the opinions of others, still dancing for the approval of a crowd whose applause means nothing in the long run. This is where his idea of the Übermensch, the overman or superman, comes in. The Übermensch is not just physically strong or socially influential. He is someone who has achieved absolute mastery over himself. He creates his own values. He walks his own path. And here's the crucial part. He does not react to every noise around him. He chooses when to engage and when to remain silent. In Nietzsche's eyes, silence wasn't weakness. It was the mark of someone who had risen above the constant need for validation. Because when you don't jump to respond, you're making a statement without saying a word. Your opinion has no power over me. And that, more than any clever argument, is what unsettles people. Think about it. A heated debate, voices clashing, tempers rising. Then one person stops speaking. Completely. They just watch. And suddenly, the balance shifts. The one still talking starts to feel exposed, like they're performing for an audience that's no longer interested. They begin to second-guess themselves. Did I say something wrong? Did I miss something? Why aren't they responding? That's the power Nietzsche understood. Silence as a form of dominance. Not arrogance, not passivity, but a conscious refusal to let others control your rhythm. The Übermensch is not driven by the urge to prove he's right. He's driven by the desire to live according to his values, not society's script. And that means he doesn't waste energy in every argument. He doesn't need to be everywhere, responding to everything. He speaks when it serves his purpose. And when it doesn't, he lets the noise pass like wind over a mountain. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Nietzsche saw silence not only as a personal strength, but as a weapon. A tool that could unbalance your opponent without you lifting a finger. And that's exactly where we're going next. Into the psychology of silence and why it disarms, confuses, and ultimately controls the minds of those who can't stand it. Silence does something strange to the human mind. It creates a vacuum. And nature, as the saying goes, hates a vacuum. When we're faced with silence, our brains scramble to fill it. We replay what we just said, looking for mistakes. We wonder if we've offended someone. We start asking ourselves questions we'd rather not answer. In that moment, silence is no longer absence. It becomes pressure. It forces the other person inward, into their own head, where doubts multiply. And here's the key. You don't have to do a thing. No clever retorts, no verbal traps, just stillness. Leaders, negotiators, and even interrogators know this well. A well-timed pause can be more powerful than a well-timed punch. In negotiations, silence makes the other side speak more than they planned, revealing weaknesses, insecurities, and concessions they would have otherwise kept hidden. In arguments, it makes people over-explain themselves, exposing cracks in their logic. Why does it work? Because most people equate silence with judgment. If you don't respond, they assume you're holding back some decisive thought, some devastating truth. Their imagination does the rest. And often, it paints a far worse picture than anything you could have said out loud. Think of silence like a mirror. When you remain quiet, you're reflecting the other person back to themselves. They're left to confront their own words, their own tone, their own behavior, without the distraction of your reaction to focus on. And most people aren't ready for that kind of reflection. But silence isn't just about making others uncomfortable. It's about control. When you refuse to be baited into reacting, you set the terms of engagement. You decide when the conversation moves forward. You become the fixed point in the room, while everyone else shifts and adjusts around you. It's no wonder that skilled strategists, from military tacticians to chess masters, rely on patience and restraint as much as action. The moment you learn to weaponize silence, you stop playing defense and start dictating the flow of the game. And yet, there's a reason society pushes us to keep talking, to keep proving, to keep explaining ourselves. The world has a deep, almost primal fear of silence, and that fear is exactly what gives you the advantage when you embrace it. We live in a culture that cannot sit still, not in action, not in thought, and certainly not in sound. Silence has become something we avoid, like an empty room we're afraid to walk into. In the past, people understood the value of quiet moments, reflection, contemplation, listening. Now those moments feel unnatural, even threatening. Why? Because silence strips away the distractions that protect us from ourselves. When the noise stops, the mind starts to speak. And for many, that inner voice isn't kind. It brings up doubts, unresolved memories, uncomfortable truths we've buried under constant activity. The endless hum of conversation, media, and online chatter acts like a blanket over those thoughts. Take it away, and people feel exposed. This is why, in our modern world, silence is often mistaken for weakness, guilt, or even defiance. If you're not speaking, people assume something's wrong, that you're hiding, plotting, or silently judging them. They don't see silence as a choice. They see it as a problem that needs to be fixed. Social media has magnified this fear. If you don't post, you disappear. If you don't comment, you're irrelevant. If you don't respond immediately, people read into it. We've been conditioned to believe that to exist publicly, we must constantly produce noise. This isn't communication, it's performance. And it's exhausting. The irony is that this very fear makes silence even more powerful for the few who embrace it. In a world where everyone is talking, the person who can hold back immediately stands out. Their absence from the noise becomes presence. Their refusal to join the scramble for attention becomes its own statement. One that's louder than any words they could have spoken. But this is also why using silence takes courage. It means stepping out of the game entirely and accepting that people might not understand you. It means risking being labeled as arrogant, aloof, or unapproachable. And most importantly, it means being able to sit alone with your own thoughts without flinching. Society tells you to speak so you can be accepted. Silence says, I don't need your acceptance to exist. And that's exactly what makes it so unsettling. But unsettling is not the same as unwise. In fact, it's the very thing that makes silence a tool for those who know how to use it. And if you're willing to step into that discomfort, you'll find that silence doesn't just protect your energy, it amplifies your power. Which brings us to the real question: how do you master silence rather than simply falling into it? How do you turn it from an awkward gap into a deliberate act of influence? Silence is not just the absence of words. It's a skill. And like any skill, it needs to be practiced with intention. Used without thought, it can make you seem distant or disengaged. Used with precision, it can shift the balance of any conversation, any argument, any relationship in your favor. Here's how to do it. Step 1. Observe before you respond. Most people listen only to prepare their reply. They're not really hearing you. They're waiting for their turn to speak. To master silence, you must break that habit. When someone speaks, focus entirely on understanding what they're saying. Their tone, their choice of words, the emotions behind them. Resist the urge to jump in. Let them finish. Let the air settle. That pause does two things. It shows you're in control of yourself, and it subtly puts them in a position where they've revealed more than they planned. Step 2. Ask, does this conversation need me? Not every fight, debate, or discussion deserves your time. Many are ego traps, meaningless battles where the other person isn't looking for truth, only victory. Before you speak, ask yourself, will my words change anything? Or am I just playing their game? If the answer is no, step back. Let the other person talk themselves into exhaustion. There is immense power in letting a storm pass while you stand untouched. Step 3. Speak with weight. When you do speak, make it count. If you've been silent, people will pay more attention when you break that silence. Choose your words carefully. Speak slowly, with purpose. Don't waste time on fluff or over-explaining. The less you speak, the more every sentence will carry. This is why great leaders and thinkers often seem so magnetic. Not because they talk more, but because they talk better. They've trained themselves to cut through noise with precision. Mastering silence is not about never speaking. It's about choosing the right moment to speak and allowing the silence before and after your words to give them gravity. It's about being intentional, not reactive. Do this often enough, and something powerful happens. People stop seeing your silence as absence. They see it as control. They start to lean in when you talk. They wait for your opinion. They measure themselves against your reactions, or lack of them. And that's when you'll realize something. Silence is not just a shield. It's a throne. And when you sit on it, you don't need to shout to rule. Now that you understand the power of silence, ask yourself something uncomfortable. Do you control your words, or do your words control you? When someone challenges you, do you speak because you truly have something to say, or because you can't stand the weight of not replying? When someone misjudges you, do you rush to correct them, or are you strong enough to let their opinion hang in the air, untouched, until it collapses under its own weight? Most people can't bear that kind of restraint. They feel the silence like a burning in their chest, a pressure they must release. But the ones who can hold it change the game entirely. So here's your challenge. In the next conversation where you feel that urge to defend, explain, or prove yourself, stop. Don't respond. Just listen. Watch how the other person reacts. Notice the discomfort, the way they shift in their seat, the way they try to pull words out of you. That's when you'll realize you're in control. Silence won't win you every battle, but it will win you the ones that matter. Because the person who doesn't need to speak is never truly cornered. And if this idea unsettled you, good. It means there's something in it worth exploring. If you want more insights like this, the kind that give you tools most people overlook, then hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next lesson. And if this video made you think differently about how you carry yourself, share it with someone who talks too much. It might change how they see the world. Oh, and drop a comment telling me about the last time silence worked in your favor. I'd love to hear your story. In the next video, we're going even deeper into the hidden psychological weapons you already carry and how to use them without ever raising your voice. Click now, because if you think silence is powerful, you haven't seen anything yet.